Hello and welcome back to another video in which we are reviewing Debi Pearl's book, Preparing to Be a Helpmeet, a book in which we learn how to get ready to be married and do everything for a man. This is from Debi Pearl, who is one half the couple who wrote To Train Up a Child, basically a guide to child abuse, isn't it, Coobs? In the last part of this video, Debi told us all the topics on which she is completely misinformed, which help her be a good wife and mother, including how autism is a disease and other fun facts like that. Some incredibly harmful misinformation there. Also bad stuff about birth control and vaccines and God knows what else. So if you'd like to watch other parts of this series, you can do. I'll leave them linked up on the screen here somewhere. They'll be popping up above my head at some point during the video. They'll also be in the video descriptions below, but you don't need to watch them to get something out of this video. This can be completely standalone, can't it, Coops? And if you like content like this and lots of other random stuff, book reviews, poetry reviews, science and history stuff, lots of social commentary, you can always subscribe because I upload videos as often as possible. Don't we, baby? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. There'll be more when I teach you how to edit, won't there? Yes. So this part of the book we're going to be looking at, you know what, I'm just going to let Debi describe this with her summary. This is what we're going to be learning about today. The moral of this story is the kind of female you are will determine the kind of male you attract. And then she offers this caution. If you want a husband that is not a pervert, then act like a princess so as to attract a good, wholesome prince. Yeah, we're in for a good one today. She says, we learned about the 3 kinds of men and 3 kinds of gals. Now it's time for some ragging. Does anyone want to explain to me how this was an actual adult who wrote this? She is just a mean girl teenager, isn't she? She then goes on to complain that some girls are too flirty and some hold back too much and appear snooty. So basically anyone who isn't doing things the Debi Pearl way is doing it wrong, and she will call you names for it. She writes, no man wants to get involved with a girl who thinks she is super spiritual, holy and wise. So remember girls, never feel good about yourself, never believe in yourself, never celebrate your own achievements because men will not want you. And then what's the point in any of it? And then in an absolutely bizarre interjection into the book, we get Zach's advice for his teenage sister. But wait, who is Zach? Where has he come from? Who knows, but Debi included him anyway. Debi describes him as cool, 18 years old, talented, and has his eye on the girls, which makes me feel icky for reasons I can't quite put into words. And then Debi goes on to split girls into 3 more categories. She really loves doing this, doesn't she? Remember in part 2 of this series review, she told us about the 3 types of men and 3 types of wife. Well, now we have her 3 types of single girls, and 2 of them are just as offensive. First up are grabbers, as she calls them. Grabbers are girls who go out hunting guys, latching onto the arms of any possibility. The problem is that the good guys will look down on girls who come to them. There are plenty of guys who will welcome the attention and the good time, but they won't value what is cheaply given. Ah yes, because a woman showing any sign of her sexuality is gross, and all women are commodities to be bought and sold, sometimes cheaply. So offensive to keep talking about women this way. We're not commodities, we're not prizes, we're not something you can buy or sell or have a price tag on us. Speaking about women and girls this way, calling us cheap and so on, teaches a girl that their only worth comes from a man's opinion, and that is so wrong. Debi writes, the good guys looking on will disregard Miss Hanger-On as a possible mother of their future children, even if they welcome her attention and flirt back. If her actions are not wifely and motherly now, why expect her to be any different in the future? This girl is destroying her marriage before it happens. Well, controversial opinion I know, but how about people grow and change over time? Because intentions change over time. Because people act differently in relationships rather than when they're single. I know. Crazy. And then a random man interjects at this point to say, if you married a girl that got his attention by constant flirting and flaunting her body, various girls will continue to get his attention that way after he's married. The biggest problem with being a grabber is that it practically guarantees you're going to marry the wrong kind of guy. And that will probably become an even more acute problem 25 years later when you don't have a 20-year-old body anymore and lots of other girls out there do. So remember women, if you dare flirt with anyone and he flirts back, then you should expect to be cheated on, and that is all your fault. This is ridiculous. It is victim blaming at its finest. Disgusting. Our next type of woman are hidden flowers, who Debi describes as treasures concealed from public view, either behind closed doors or disguised as icicles. These girls live at home, seldom minister to others outside their families, usually don't help out in events, steer clear from getting involved in projects outside their small circle, don't work outside their home, wouldn't consider a mission trip unless it was scheduled and chaperoned, and of course seldom meet any cool dudes. No, but I so wanted to meet a cool dude. I know. It is not their spirituality that makes these hidden flowers as useless as they seem. Some are shy and uncomfortable in public due to lack of experience. Some are afraid of the world. Got you. So introverts appear and are useless. Thanks, Debbie. They are good girls that would make great wives, but they have a misguided idea how a righteous girl should spend her time. If they remain homebound too long, they might wake up to find they have become hidden old maids. Yeah, we wouldn't want that, would we? How dare a woman be content alone? Better shame her, call her names. We must make her feel bad about herself if she is not owned by a man by 22? You know what I find funny is that all these people who, in the last video I spoke about some people who say I'm too young and I'm too naive to talk about these topics. While they may say that and call me too young and naive, by Debi Pearl standards, I would absolutely be a tragic old maid by now. At almost 29, I should have popped out like 6 babies by now and been married a good 10 years, you know? Debbie goes on to say both grabbers and hidden flowers are on opposite ends of the spectrum. Both loose out. This book needed an editor. One never marries, the other marries a jerk. But there is a balance. The princess wins the prince. A princess will not be a come-on, neither will she stay hidden. She will be busy, productive, and her life will have purpose, and her purpose will not just be to get married, which actually sounds pretty positive so far. I'm all for encouraging women to have purpose outside of marriage, you know? Wonderful. But, then she says, when a man is looking for a helpmeet, he will notice girls who are busy helping. A girl who is enthusiastically involved in projects and activities exudes an energy that makes her attractive. A young man of energy and vision who plans on conquering a little portion of the world and making a difference is going to find a partner who is already engaged in the same. He's not going to want to marry a liability, a high-maintenance wall hanging. When he sees you aggressively helping at church, in camps, at home, friends, etc., he will take notice. Here she's basically saying, exhibit your worth and he might buy you. She goes on to say, all men appreciate women that are joyful, cheerful, and entertaining. A too sober girl, a girl that has a slightly cautious air, tinged with just a touch of critical attitude, will be passed over. All men are replaced by self-righteous women. It is a common fault that seems to overcome even the sweetest girls once they're married. If your countenance as a single girl suggests even a hint of thinking yourself wiser and more spiritual, you will most likely stay a single girl. So remember, ladies, all men are the same and all want exactly the same thing, and don't you dare be better at anything than your man, because, oh, you're gonna have the worst fate ever, to be single. And of course, men only ever want women with one body type, because, like I say, they're all the same. Most men want a girl that takes care of her body, keeping it toned, strong, and healthy. It is a sign of what she will be in her future. After all, men are visual beings. They like to look and enjoy. Don't let yourself become a fat lassie. Learn what men like. Ask your brothers how most young men like girls to wear their hair. You will hear, guys like girls with long hair. If you're smart, you will listen to what you are told. You will also be told that guys don't really like piles of makeup or strong perfume. Again, if you are wise and not stubborn, you will listen and comply. Listen to that language. Listen and comply. This reads like something straight out of dystopian fiction. Can you actually believe this? And if all this hurts your feelings, you know, being treated like cattle at the market, do you know what you should do? Suck it up, bitch. Because Debbie writes, don't be moody, because guys do not like complaining or touchy-feely, you hurt my feelings type of girls. Guys talk. They will alert other young men to any female they see sulking. This is genuinely so dangerous. It is a literal threat to suppress your emotions or else, and that's absolutely awful. This is exactly what I was talking about in my last video, about how Debbie is teaching women to just, you know, shut down their feelings. Don't complain. If you're hurt, if you're sad, repress it. Don't talk about it. Don't seek help. And that's so dangerous. That's how women and people end up in abusive situations and don't leave and feel like they can't leave and end up getting hurt or killed. Outside of the abusive relationship I was in, I also spent my entire childhood being told to keep my head down and get on with it. And I was told over and over again to suppress my feelings, and whenever I tried to express them, I was shouted at and told off and called a disappointment, and it honestly messed me up so much. Since I'm autistic too, I really struggle with emotional regulation and also just identifying what my own feelings are. So altogether, this has like led me to be quite a genuinely like messed up adult. So now I'm having to work with a therapist to undo a lot of damage that I guess my parents did and that has kind of compounded over time. And it's hard work. It's really, really difficult. So when I see people like Debbie being like, oh, don't have feelings, don't do this, like, no, screw you, Debbie. Instead, my advice is don't ever suppress your emotions just to impress someone else. Instead, learn to embrace them and control them and understand them for yourself. Often when we have negative emotions, it's telling us we need to change something about our situation. So if a man makes you upset, listen to yourself and consider why you're upset, and don't be afraid to express it and then change something in your life to ensure it doesn't happen again. We can't control other people's behaviour, but we can control our reactions to it, and we can control what we allow into our lives. Your feelings are valid, and they're not something you should have to hide or suppress or pretend don't exist just to impress someone else. Hiding that stuff is only going to lead to more hurt in the long run. So then the next chapter is just full of these like anecdotal stories that basically come down to the idea of never tell a guy you're interested or you'll put him off, and never ask him to clarify what the relationship is because he'll just dump you. Basically, Debbie thinks you should just let a man lead you on as much as he likes, and if it doesn't work out, then it's clearly your fault and something that you, as a woman, did wrong. There are passages like this. Women have numerous ways of taking control. Many men are either weaklings or so sexed up they simply don't care if a girl is mowing them down. But most good men will not put up with a girl who tries to leapfrog his schedule. And another one, patience is critical. Even when a push is kind, polite and thoughtful, it still exerts pressure that the man instantly perceives as asserting control. She then goes on to tell a story, a deep, dark, terrible, terrible story about a young girl who commits the deadliest sin of all. She touches a man's arm, and she's not even married to him, and at one point she even touches his leg. I know, what a whore. Straight to hell with her. I wish I was joking, but they're basically Debbie's words. And then the rest of the story is basically about how he, the man, can't control his hormones, and he feels lust and then guilt for them, and only he can think about her body and not her personality. To quote, he felt both drawn to her and repulsed by the guilt she caused in him. And you know what Debbie says? This is all her fault, obviously. He has these feelings, he has hormones, he can't control them, so it's her fault. Make it make sense. So in response to this, he quits his job and moves away and ghosts her. And again, according to Debbie, this is all the woman's fault because she dared touch his arm and be interested in him. And you know what Debbie says she should have done instead? What if she had been smart enough to just briefly catch eyes with him? Just once. Very important to be just once. So as not to appear to be a grabber or take control. Then, if she happened to blush, well, he would clearly have gotten the message that she thought he was a hunk. It might have awakened his interest in her. Then again, it might not have. A girl has to hope, but not demand. Good men carry the load of responsibility. They need to feel as if they have stability to offer their bride. And then she just goes on this rant about how terrible lust is and that marriages shouldn't be built on it, which might be true if she said marriages shouldn't be built on lust alone, but I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting lust to be a big part of your relationship or marriage if that's something that's important to you. Everyone wants different things, and you just need to figure out what you value and what makes you compatible with someone and what works for you both. Isn't that right, Coobs? Not that you should be knowing about this. You're a 9-year-old. You're too young for relationships. You're too young. Too young. All you male dogs out there. Eyes off my pup. My innocent young lady, aren't you? And then next up we get a whole chapter of other cautionary tales, and one in particular stood out to me because it's about a woman called Jane, and it is just full of problems. There are so many problems I decided to number them. Sometimes when I premiere my videos, it's really, really fun because people do like a pretend drinking game in the comments, and it's like, drink every time, whatever, and it'll be like, drink every time I talk to Kyra, or drink every time I say like, but funny, or whatever. If you are playing a drinking game here, I want you to take a shot every time Debbie says something offensive, although I warn you, you may need a doctor on hand if you're going to play this game. I am not responsible for any or all alcohol poisoning you will get if you actually play this. Please don't do it, don't die. Let me read you an abridged version of this story. Jane was 23 years old before Roger asked for her hand in marriage. It came as a total surprise to her. He was a friend of her brother, but had never really shown her any special attention. Roger was shy and awkward around her, and she was so nervous around him she couldn't say a word. He was a nice guy, and she would have swooned over him if he'd asked her just 3 months earlier, but now she wasn't sure. Jane had been secretly texting and emailing a guy from Florida for several months. She had never actually met Mr. Florida, but they had discussed everything while texting. As soon as Roger left her family's house after asking for her hand in marriage, she rushed into her bedroom to email Mr. Florida of Roger's proposal, and then shared with him her nervousness, fears, uncertainties, and doubt. Every evening for weeks, Roger came over to visit her, but she could not open up to him like she could Mr. Florida. But the wedding was scheduled anyway, for Jane wanted to get married. Mr. Florida never mentioned marriage. She knew her parents would never approve of him anyway, as they had narrow expectations of a suitor. So, let's count the problems so far. Number 1, we have Debbie acting like 23 is still old to be single. It's not. Number 2, Roger is such a nice guy and wants to marry her, but he's awkward around her and he makes her so nervous she can't talk at all. What exactly do they have in common? Why exactly do they like each other? Why do they want to get married? Do they even know each other well enough to be even thinking about dating, never mind marriage? Number 3, I don't see anything here about Jane actually wanting to or agreeing to marry him, and yet somehow the wedding's being planned anyway. There's that throwaway line of, for Jane wanted to get married, but do we know that she actually agreed to this, or was it just her parents? Problem number 4, why are Jane's parents' approval more important than her feelings and wants and needs? And look at this. She has nervousness, fears, uncertainties, doubts. Why is that less important than her parents having narrow expectations of a suitor? The story goes on. 2 weeks before the wedding, Jane was getting very nervous. She emailed Mr. Florida to say she wished Roger were like him. She felt like she was marrying a stranger. Problem number 5. This is a damn big sign you should not be marrying someone if they feel like a stranger to you. If you're getting married, they should be your best friend. You should want to build a life with them. You should not be having major doubts like this. You should not think of them as a stranger. In confused desperation, she bought a bus ticket and slipped out the house. Mr. Florida met her at the bus station and took her to a motel where she fell into his arms weeping. They didn't mean for it to happen. They just felt so connected, like it was meant to be. You do understand, don't you? Problem number 6. Debbie, if you can't say the word sex, then maybe you're not mature enough to be writing a whole book about it. Just throwing that out there, Debbie. Number 7, stop shaming women for wanting to have sex and having sex. It's a perfectly normal thing for adults, and clearly she has feelings for this man, she has a connection with him, a connection which she doesn't have with the man she's apparently supposed to be marrying. At most, we can say she's cheating on her fiancé, but it sounds to me like she didn't even really decide to be with him in the first place, so I'm not going to hold that against her in this story at all. This story goes on, doesn't it? It does. After a week of sleeping together at the motel, the spiritual Bible-quoting, deeply sincere Mr. Florida revealed that he was already married and had 2 kids. He explained that he desperately loved her, and she was so much more than his own pitiful wife, but he had a commitment to his family. She walked into the motel an unkissed virgin. 7 days later, she walked out pregnant. Of course she did. Jane got back on the bus and went home. So problem number 8 here. Florida guy is a lying, cheating douchebag. He's the villain here, not Jane. She did nothing wrong other than being a little naive and trusting and falling for someone who set out to deceive her from the start. It can happen to any of us, but she's not the bad guy here. She didn't know. Problem number 9, of course she got pregnant in the first week, right? Sure, how convenient for the story. Why is everyone in Debbie's world super fertile and constantly ovulating? Problem 10, the problem here isn't that they had sex, it's that this poor naive young woman was never taught enough about safe sex and birth control to be properly informed and make properly informed decisions. That's what happens when their only education is from books like this. The problem wasn't with her having sex, it was having unprotected sex because she didn't know any better. Problem number 11, if they spent a week in a motel room and she got pregnant during that time, she wouldn't even know she was pregnant when she left. Not possible. Debbie, learn how ovulation works. Learn how the menstrual cycle works. And number 12, I'm going to keep saying it, the only person doing something wrong here is this man. He's taking advantage of her and he knows it. Why is Debbie not villainizing him more? Why does he get a free pass, but Jane here doesn't? Her relationship with Mr. Florida felt more real than what she felt for Roger. Why? because Jane believed she knew Mr. Florida. They experienced intimacy as they texted. They became relaxed and confident with each other, which made physical intimacy hard to resist. Emailing, texting and phoning was the sin that led to her ugly tragedy. Problem number 13, there's no sin here. There's no sin in feeling close to someone and developing feelings for someone who you think is single and available and nice. Again, she did nothing wrong. She committed no sins. All the bad stuff is on the cheating, lying man. Her texting brought death to her lifelong hopes, dreams, and the possibility of becoming a pure bride. Roger didn't want a candy bar that had already been licked, so he went elsewhere and found a nice, chaste girl who didn't text. Problem number 14, stop. Women are not objects or cars or chocolate bars or whatever other disgusting analogy you want to use. We are not commodities to be purchased or owned. We are not a car you drive or a chocolate bar you consume. We are human beings and we cannot be spoilt or used up by a man, and that type of thinking is disgusting and misogynistic and it needs to stop. Point number 15, I'm glad she didn't end up with Roger because he was clearly wrong for her. He wouldn't have made her happy. They didn't know each other. I'm glad they didn't marry each other. That's not an issue in this story. I think that's a happy ending, if anything, there. Problem number 16, I will say it again. This married man took advantage of a naive young woman. Why isn't Debbie being more critical of him? I don't know how many more times I can say this, but I'm going to keep doing it. If Jane is a licked chocolate bar in this story, then this married man is a melted, rotten smear of chocolate at the bottom of a bin. Let's talk more about that, shall we, instead of Jane and her little licked chocolate bar. And then Debbie kind of gives us the moral of the story, right? When you get to know someone online, it's like getting to know a character in a fiction novel. The character is the product of creative writing. When a young man writes to girls, you can be sure of one thing. He is doing his very best to make a good impression. Okay, got you. We shouldn't use what we see online to form our full opinion of someone. Makes sense. Got it. Wait, unless it's a woman, apparently? In preparing to write this book, I asked several young men if they had gone to the web to check up on any of the girls they had considered as potential brides. Many men felt that the best way to really know what and who a girl was to check out her past cyber traffic. What has she written? Who has she been in contact with? The guys had thus eliminated many girls that never even knew they were being considered. So number 17, the final problem. When a man posts stuff online, ignore it, because you can never really know it's the real him when it's just online. But when a woman posts stuff online, a man can tell everything he needs to know about her. What? Why? Double standard much? This is so typical Debbie. Oh, for God's sake. And then Debbie ends with a warning to never text or email a man because to get to know a man who is not your husband is emotional adultery. To exchange intimate knowledge with several guys is whorish. Seriously. And then Debbie goes on about how sexting leads to suicide because reasons and stuff. Now what I will say is that if you are like a teenager under 18, Debbie is right, you shouldn't do it, but not because you'll get embarrassed and kill yourself, but because it is entirely illegal, and that is not material that should be being made or shared with absolutely anyone. When you're an adult, it's different. You can do as you like, but you will still need to be careful and make your own judgments and think things through. Don't just do something because you're pressured into it, because someone else wants you to do it. Never feel like you have to take or send anything if you aren't fully comfortable with it. But also, if you do want to and you feel safe and respected while doing so, then don't let Debi Pearl, of all people, shame you about it. And that's pretty much where this chapter ends and where I'm going to end this video today. So let me know what your thoughts on Debbie and her book so far are down in the comments. If you want to watch the other parts of this video series, you can do. They'll be linked in the video description. And also let me know if you found more than 17 problems with Jane's story or being taken advantage of by an older man. As always, if you like this video, please don't forget to leave a like, comment, share it around, because it all really helps me and my channel grow. But for now, thank you for watching today. Please don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this and more content from me in general. And yeah, thanks for watching today. I appreciate you a hell of a lot, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.